Do you have a question?
Yeah. I guess sort of just piggybacking on this conversation, I was wondering if you might have any thoughts on how roles like yours are going to change in the next 10 years. I mean, the tech is rapidly adapting, the business, I guess the performance indicators that the different groups are looking at are changing. I'm just curious if you could just speculate forward, where do you think we're going for work in this space?
So are we talking about accounting or data analytics? Because I feel like accounting, sorry, I asked the question and then it was more like a,
If you can answer for both,
I'm
yeah.
thinking for accounting because like I do think, you know, there may be like some lag in terms of like adopting technologies. So we'll just continue to like, we may be a little behind, but like start adopting technologies to use in our day to day, just because a lot of what we do is so data heavy. And I think it's like it's the perfect opportunity to leverage those tools. Um, so I think, yeah, I don't AI is changing so rapidly too. Like it's crazy because I think there's gonna be a lot of change like in the next 3 to 5 years. I'm just even thinking of like ChatGPT. You a couple of years ago hadn't heard of it. Now like everyone's using it. I was at a conference last week where a law professor was talking about using ChatGPT in law and how it was interesting like how like amazing like people were saying like there's this deep research tool in ChatGPT where they AI wrote a paper that was like potentially better than what the associates were writing and it took a fraction of the time. um so yeah, it is kind of hard to speculate because I think I might say one thing and we might have already, we'll be there soon. And then
Yeah.
I don't want to say that people are going to be replaced. I think their roles will just continue to change. Like you may just not be doing what you thought you would be doing.
Yeah, like I could see the value of like still needing humans who know what the right output is, even if they're not the ones generating it, but still being able to assess what is. Because I've even seen in spaces for like doctor diagnoses, like LLMs and AI has been used to like diagnose, like charts and stuff, and they've actually performed as well and sometimes even better than the actual medical doctors. So like it definitely, yeah, is a really big open question that I guess it affects across all all professions. So if it makes it feel better that we're all in the same boat, I guess. But
Yeah, I think too, like at what point are you gonna be comfortable with like not having to do such a I don't know, like that's what I'm struggling with. Like at what point do you kind of take your foot off the brake and say like, okay, I'm comfortable with what this is outputting because it's changing the outputs, what it's like the data coming through, like it's changing so rapidly. I feel like at this point, I don't see a point where you can just say, okay, this thing I can I can trust implicitly. Like I do think it's always going to have to be, reviewed by someone who has the knowledge.
yeah, yeah. And like even like an expert, like a human expert, like just one person's opinion is never always comprehensive. And I think that's a similar thing with like a chat GPT of like, for one, it can give multiple different variations of, the same question. But like also just considering like, hey, that's just one perspective, whether it's from an algorithm or not. Yeah. Um,
It's also the law professor because like, certain attorneys specifically may be not as open to AI. but he was trying to make the point is that like are your associates like do they always produce like error-free reports or like you kind of have to have that same like you have to be like, okay, yeah, you're right. No, like we're all humans. What we're producing is not perfect. So to be able, basically don't write it off, right? Because humans are making mistakes. But like having that open mind when you're using it.
Yeah. I think a source of the anxiety also is like, where does the accountability land? So I guess in the traditional sense, like it's like even if you're an expert and you made an error, then it's like, oh well, it's that person, whatever, and you take responsibility. But then what happens when an algorithm, says the wrong output? Then like, I mean, you can point the fingers at the algorithm, and I think that's what people will definitely do. But like, then. I mean, yeah, like I guess maybe that's also kind of where people are also trying to figure out too of just, yeah, like where does the responsibility start and end?
Right.
Yeah, and I can totally see down the line too, and I think the trend's already starting, and I think it will be the case where like I think every company will probably have their own personal like LLM chatbot. And then there's going to be like, the general ChatGPT that's kind of like a Google at that point. But lot to see. Yeah.
I'm interested because I was talking with someone about this yesterday. Do you guys still use Google? Like, is your first instinct to go to Google, or do you end up going to ChatGPT first?
I still use Google, but I definitely know like younger people and like students are using ChatGPT for like their
I use
go-to.
ChatGPT.
Yes.
There's a search function inside ChatGPT. It just basically search on Google for you.
Yeah, that's interesting because I my first inclination is Google.
Yeah. Well, because also now Google even gives you AI responses for like the first half of the page is their,
Yeah.
I guess Gemini is what their latest thing is. So it is funny because they're even kind of forcing you to use like an LLM. Yeah, yeah. I mean,
Well,
I'll
but
still scroll, but yeah.
if you want to dig into the topic you're searching, you have to end up using Google.
Right.
ChatGPT is just um, a a glimpse of what you're looking for.
Yeah.
Yeah, I sort of fluctuate between the two. I will go with uh, Google if I'm just doing like some basic information retrieval. Like I just want to look up like I don't know why does my wrist hurt or something, and I'll Google like wrist pain or something, and I'll read about it. But if I want to do something that's got like a little bit more of an in-depth reasoning process, like tell me about the foundations of this psychological model, then I'll use ChatGPT. That way I can sort of explain out concepts and I can ask it questions about the different concepts. And so I use each one in different use cases.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like it kind of even like what a Wikipedia article kind of used to be, and probably still is, but just a more interactive Wikipedia article. And then, yeah, to start your search.
Yeah, the Google AI summaries though are sometimes kind of sketchy. Like I'll look at them and it'll tell me things that like I know are just verifiably wrong, but it's pulling from some source and it'll give me a source and I can click it and I can go to the website. I'm like, okay, like it might be like a health website and I'm trying to read something about, let's just use that example of wrist pain or something. And Google's pulling its response from the comment that someone wrote on like responding to the website content or something. And I'm like, that is not the right place to be pulling the information from. Like you need to be pulling from the content itself. But the Google's algorithm is not differentiating between the different types of information. So it ends up just like giving some random person's opinion on like this one medical treatment or something. It's very interesting.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's all just text to the algorithm, so it doesn't. Yeah. Yeah. It's also, I think, tricky too of like, is it a closed system of like, I think it's one thing if it's like, oh, like here's my company or here's a client and they have a specific set of questions. So you kind of create a chat bot that like, is tailored to these use cases versus something where it's like Google, where they're trying to use an AI to summarize all possible internet searches that any human being can possibly come up with. So like you can do some basic testing, but honestly, it's kind of an impossible job to really like come up with every possible Google question and then make sure the output is responsible. It's yeah, it's well, yeah, it's definitely
There
still the
are
Wild West.
ways I keep thinking like I probably should be using AI for. Like I'm thinking like if I have to make like a dinner or lunch reservation, like it probably would be helpful to use ChatGPT or Claude or whatever it may be versus like me Googling this. So like I sometimes I feel like I do need to take a look at what I'm doing and like, okay, like, or even travel, like something like that, where the stakes are not high, but it will make, your life easier.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with that too. Like I find myself that I probably am leaving a lot on the table for not using AI for some things. So it is kind of just, yeah, like everyone has to come up with their own personal comfort zone of like this is a fine task to delegate and maybe this one isn't, and it's still definitely a lot of iteration and figuring that out. I did have two more questions, unless you had one more, something else to add on
I
that.
was just gonna say the conference I was at last week, it was super interesting because the speaker had uploaded a picture of his house um to ChatGPT and asked it, where is this house located? And it was super interesting because like there was a car in the driveway, so you would think like, oh, you'd look at the license plate, like that may give an indication. But actually, ChatGPT focused on like the very edge of the picture, and there was a piece of like a dumpster, and it had a like a label on it, and it was able to figure out what location um this man lived. And I sometimes it's like those type of things are like that it can think out of the side of the box like that just is so interesting. I figured I'd share that because I was amazed.
Yeah, totally. And I think that the image recognition stuff I definitely have been, I think, the most impressive. And especially like I think that's even why it's so good at diagnoses, because it's like you have like a X-ray and it's like you know what a good X-ray is supposed to look like and a bad one. So it is kind of a clear-cut thing. And even though humans can make that distinction too, it also kind of makes sense that a like algorithm would have that level of precision of like, oh, this one pixel over here could correspond to something, and and especially if it's trained on like 100,000 X-ray pictures, then like it usually probably even has a bigger database or reference points than like even medical doctors. So it's yeah, I think it definitely is kind of figuring out like what is it absolutely fantastic at, and then just kind of emphasizing those, and then maybe things that it can still do a good job, but you still have to kind of be a little skeptical and a little bit on your toes. Yeah.
So I
Yeah,
did
definitely.
some radiology AI stuff, and it was really interesting. The algorithms would often focus on the little numbers in the corners as opposed to like these were chest x-rays. And instead of focusing on some aspect of the chest, like little nodules or densities or something up here, it would look at the little number in the corner, and the little number in the corner might say like M080 or something like that. And it's like, oh, so this is a male patient in his 80s, and that completely biases the algorithm to what uh the diagnosis is likely to be. And so it's not even, it's not focusing on the chest quite as much as it is like all these like it was just so interesting to see that like the basis of the diagnosis was coming from something that completely had nothing to do with the actual lung nodules themselves. It was all the little numbers in the corner, similar to the case with the trash bin and the label on it. It's just very interesting what it picks up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's crazy.